death, narcissism, and marriage. We gonna get into it. Let's get it. Welcome. First of all, welcome. This is Unsolicited Perspectives. I'm your host, Bruce Anthony, here to lead the conversation in important events and topics that are shaping today's society. Join the conversation and follow us wherever you get your audio podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for our video podcast, YouTube exclusive content, and our YouTube membership. Rate, review, like, comment, share. Share with your friends, share with your family, hell, even share with your enemies. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about a funeral home that went bad. We're going to be talking about dealing with narcissists and what happens when you're unhappy with your marriage. But that's enough of the intro. Let's get to the show. I know a lot of people out there want to hear my thoughts on the Charlie Kirk killing, and I'm going to give them to you, just not on this show. I am going to talk about everything I feel, everything that I think, everything that's on my mind on an after hours episode. Well, it's not really after hours, it's my own episode, but I'm going to give my sister an opportunity to feel something with me as well. It's going to be in the after hours or my own show. Basically, it's going to be in our membership. The video will be out there for people that want to hear what we have to say, but we're not putting it on this show. I got a lot to say. I have a tremendous amount to say. And I have other things that I would like to talk about. And I want the space to be able to talk about that absolutely freely and not have an issue with it being put up on YouTube or with all the other audio platforms. I want the freedom, and I'm sure my sister does as well, the freedom to say exactly how we feel, what we think about the killing without causing detriment to our show. Not to say that it would, just a precaution. So sign up for our membership. Like, you could join the membership for $2.99 a month, like $3 a month. And typically you don't get after hours uncensored, but I will put that video on that membership so people can get an idea a little bit about the content that we provide on our behind our paywall, and also get some of our thoughts that we can't say on the main show, or that probably shouldn't be said on the main show for a variety of different reasons, not solely talking about this particular topic, but just a variety of topics. We had the freedom where we don't have to watch our language. We don't have to watch our mouth. We can just say whatever the hell we want to say. We can't necessarily do it on this show, especially now that we're monetized. You know, we have sponsors and everything. Like, we don't for the paywall. That's just us. So that's the reason why it's going to be on the behind the paywall in our membership program. I do want to say thoughts and prayers to them babies. You know me, I'm always for the kids. Thoughts and prayers to them babies because they lost a father. And I've known people who lost a father at a very young age. It's going to impact them for the rest of their life. So thoughts and prayers for them babies. Now, on to the show. And that was kind of like a downer. So I'm going to bring us up with this crazy story. Now, I decided to create an even newer segment that I hope that I'll routinely do, because I think this is a good idea for a segment, and hopefully I won't ever forget about it. But y'all know how I am when I create new segment titles and say, this is what we're going to talk about for this segment, and then forget about it. But this is, They Did What Now? That's the title of the segment. They Did What Now? And whenever I have a segment where they did what now, just know that it's a story that when I tell you, you're going to be like, they did what now? Exactly. All right. So John Halford faces multiple federal and state charges related to mishandling of nearly 200 bodies at the Return to Nature funeral home in Penrose, Colorado, as well as fraud involving funeral payments, and COVID-19 relief funds. So Halford is charged with 191 counts of abuse of a corpse after investigators discovered 191 decaying bodies improperly stored at his funeral home. Charges include allegations of providing families with dry concrete to mimic cremation ashes and burying the wrong bodies. Halford and his wife also face federal wire fraud charges for defrauding funeral clients and the SBA, the Small Business Administration, of COVID-19 relief funds. Halford was sentenced in June 2025 to 20 years in federal prison in order to pay over $1 million in restitution for wire fraud and other related crimes, including forgery, theft, and money laundering. Now, that was his wife. Halford originally pleaded guilty to state corpse abuse charges, but the judge rejected his plea agreement, leading him to withdraw the plea and head to trial. The initial plea deal would have allowed Halford to serve 20-year sentence concurrently with his federal sentence, but this was rejected after an emotional testimony from victims' families who demanded a longer sentence. Prosecutors reportedly offered Halford a 30 to 50-year plea deal, which he also turned down. So the case will proceed to jury trial scheduled for February 9th of 2026. Halford's wife, Carrie Halford, is also facing similar charges. She pleaded guilty in federal court, but withdrew her plea in the state court and is awaiting further hearings. Y'all, so when I just say that, because there's more details that I'm going to get into. When I just say that, you understand why this new segment is titled, They Did What Now? Because he did what now? Uh, he was a funeral home person. And when your loved one passes, and your loved one could be anybody, right? This was human bodies. However, I've told the story of my dog passing away, how much that affected me. There was actually a couple of weeks ago, as I was talking about crypto, there was a long soliloquy in one of the podcasts. I cut that shit out because it got too damn emotional, and I opened up my heart a little too much to you guys out there in the public, and I was like, I'm not posting this. But it was an emotional ordeal for me. And I got him cremated, and he's on my TV stand right now in his little box with his little name tag, crypto. And I got on the other side a little paw print and clay and a picture of him. That's my man. As I got this, though, I was thinking to myself, I don't technically know that's him. I'm assuming that the company is on the up and up because the hospital, the emergency hospital I took him to, the vets there were wonderful, and I know they're on the up and up. So I'm going to assume that they have a partnership, a business agreement with another up and up company, but I don't know for sure. And you can get DNA testing on the remains, which is what I'm sure a lot of these people did. But you don't know. Now imagine it's your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your son or daughter, your grandparents, your grandchildren. Not only did they give you ashes that were dried cement, but the bodies are decaying off behind the house. Yeah, off behind the house. Yeah, I'd be furious. 20 years ain't enough time. I understand why the people that were victimized in this situation. I talked about victimization the other day, right? This wasn't anything where they had any kind of accountability or responsibility. Like they are completely, absolutely victims, and they are calling for justice for being wronged. And they are absolutely right. I would call for the chair personally. The bodies, but dig this here, the bodies were stored from 2019 to 2023, and families received the fake ashes instead of proper cremation. Halford and his spouse used the defrauded money for personal luxuries, including travel and expensive cars. The scandal has also exposed Colorado's weak funeral home regulations and led to renewed calls to oversight reforms. But not only, dig this here, Not only did you send me dried cement instead of my loved one, that right there means I got to whoop your ass. That alone. That alone means I got to whoop your ass immediately, urgently, and be due diligent in that ass whooping. That's the first thing I got to do. The second thing I got to do when I'm done beating that ass is I want my damn money, because you took my money. But not only did you give me dried cement, you took my money and you was big balling with it. In the words of Baby and Drake from the great 2010 song, they had money to blow because they was defrauding everybody, not just people that came to them to take care of their loved ones, also the government. They got such a scam going on, but still defrauded the government with them PPP loans. Now, them PPP loans was going all over the place. You know, I should have grabbed me one, but I don't want to defraud the government because I don't want the government after me. And maybe one day I might decide to run for office, even though that's highly unlikely because I got a past and let's move on. But you live in lavish? While there are bodies, the part that I really didn't want to bring up, that I brought up earlier, but I'm not going to go into great detail about it, is that these bodies were almost like in a backyard area, just kind of like decomposing. And did y'all hear the other part where I said, even when they weren't cremating and they were burying bodies, they would be burying the wrong people? Like, just foul all the way around. And there is a record of Colorado, as I said earlier, having bad regulations as far as oversight for these funeral homes. Because there was another case where it was like 20 bodies were misplaced or something like that. Now you hear stories of funeral homes having mix-ups every now and then. It's not a common occurrence. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was like, you know what? Through technology, this shouldn't happen anymore. But I believe, and I'm sure there are multiple cases, that in the olden times, I'm talking about like before my parents were born, even maybe when my parents were born. My parents were born in the late 50s. But before that, how often you think they messed up them babies in them nurseries when the babies was getting born in the hospital? How many times you think when them nurses that was in there caring for those babies was slipping on their job and put the wrong tag on the wrong baby and families went home? It's happened. It has happened, right? So just know that in particular with babies, probably not going to happen today, right? But you don't know what goes on in a funeral home behind the scenes. If you decide to have, an open casket viewing, then yeah. And even my family members who were cremated had an open casket viewing. So we knew it was them, but we don't know. Like, we trust the funeral home, but we don't know that the loved ones that decided to get cremated, that after we did the viewing, that what we got was actually their body. This is a fair mind because I want to be cremated. I don't want to be buried. What happens if I come back to life and I'm buried underneath the ground with spiders and snakes and I got to try and crawl up? I done seen that movie, trying to bury it alive. I don't want that. Go ahead and cremate me. Take me out. Just look, I don't want to be undead. Anyway, I want to be cremated. And for those that are my loved ones that want to keep a piece of me, cool. But I already told everybody I want to be cremated and I wanted my ashes spread over the ocean in Hawaii, because that's my home. That's where I feel the most at peace. That to me is heaven. That area, just I love it so much. And to think that these people were throwing bodies in the backyard or burying the wrong bodies, getting dried cement. Why wouldn't they just cremate the bodies? Like, you have the equipment. How lazy do you got to be? And you live in lavish, lavish, double ass whooping. Look, I don't agree with men putting their hands on women. But she got to get her ass whooped too, because she right along with it. And they said lavish lifestyle, lavish trips, personal luxuries, and expensive cars. You could go out there and sell drugs before messing anybody else's body up and not cremating them and not burying them, right? I feel like that's more of a crime. That's more of a detriment to society, is what these people did with the trust of the people that hand you their loved ones than drug dealers. Drug dealers, the idea that drug dealers are out here. Remember when we was kids, we used to watch them after Saturday afternoon specials, or not Saturday afternoon, after school specials, right? And it'd be the drug dealers like, hey man, you want to try this? Look, I done lived all in every social economic area that you could think of besides the super ultra wealthy, right? And I've known drug dealers, okay? And not a one has ever walked up to anybody and be like, hey man, you want to try this? You should try this. They don't have to push drugs on you. Nobody has a drug. The idea that somebody is a drug pusher is not a real thing. They're a drug seller. People are coming to them because they want drugs. I feel like these people are more of a detriment to society than the drug dealer, because people are coming to these people to give them money to take care of their loved ones. Other people just go on to drug dealers to buy some drugs. And I bought drugs before, marijuana. Marijuana, I ain't never tried anything hard because I'm scared. Marijuana. And then nobody ever tried to be like, hey man, you want to try that? Friends and peer pressure, friends have, but not drug dealers. Not drug dealers. These people, the Hawfords, are more of a detriment to society than drug dealers. And because of that, the victims are absolutely right. 20 years served concurrent. Because see, people don't get it a lot of times when people are charged with something or sentenced to something. When they say concurrent, that just means that all those charges, you had 7 charges and all of them carry a 20-year sentence. You're not getting 140 years if they serve concurrent. You're serving all of those 20 years at one time. So you get 20 years. And you don't serve 20 years because typically you're going to get out of parole with good behavior. Nah. I want them served consecutively. That means one right after another. The victims is absolutely right. I support the victims, and I don't support the first. Man, let me tell you, the triple ass whooping. Triple ass whooping. That's crazy. This came across my algorithm is crazy. This came across my algorithm, and that's the reason why I asked. They did what now? And I know you asking the same damn thing. They did what now? All right, now transitioning from a crazy story which included narcissists. I'm going to assume that the Hawfords were narcissists because good God. I did a show, I don't know how long ago, but I've done a show on narcissists because I feel like that term is being thrown down too much. Everybody's accusing everybody to be a narcissist, but there's a certain set of guidelines or principles that narcissists not follow, but have, that designates them as narcissists. Just because somebody is selfish doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. So I've already broke that down in a previous episode, but what I found interesting is this article. It was on today.com. It's the best tactic to use when talking to a narcissist, according to a therapist, and it's written by Caroline Key. And it's talking about, this person is legitimately a narcissist, not you diagnosing them. They're a narcissist, right? And you have to interact with them. And this article is about how you interact with a narcissist. And I thought, oh, this is extremely interesting, because though the term is being thrown around really loosely, there are definitely more than a few narcissists out there. I used to think I was a narcissist, but narcissists don't typically have empathy, and I have a little bit too much empathy. Not to make this about me, but this was legitimately a fear that I had. What I found out is I have a propensity to date narcissists, and they were gaslighting me. Now, was I selfish in my youth? Hell yeah. Am I still a little selfish now? Hell yeah. I try not to be, but sometimes in life to make yourself happy, you gotta be a little selfish. And I'm not talking about doing anybody bad. I'm just talking about creating boundaries for me. And sometimes creating boundaries for me means that you are selfish with your time. I'm very selfish with my time. I need to have my recharge time. If I don't have my recharge time, it's gonna be hell for everybody because I could be a holy terror when I'm tired, annoyed, or aggravated. But I tend to date narcissists. Part of being a narcissist is gaslighting you, making you feel like you're the problem. Sometimes I was a problem. A lot of times I was not the problem. It was the people that I was dating. So in this article, the licensed therapist is, please excuse me, y'all know I'm not good with names, Romani Duvesela. That's the best that I could do. And it's a complicated name. But she suggests that coping strategies include a narcissist bingo card. This is a good way to handle interactions with narcissists, especially in unavoidable situations like families, holidays, and colleagues. And let's talk about some of these unavoidable type of situations because a lot of people will just say, well, if they're a narcissist, just don't deal with them. Sometimes you ain't got no choice. Sometimes they're their boss. Sometimes they're your coworker. Sometimes they're your family member and you're in their house for the holidays or they're at your house for the holidays, right? Sometimes it's an ex-spouse, but you're co-parenting and you don't have any choice. Just because they're a narcissist doesn't mean that you can cut them out because there might be obligations surrounding it where you have to deal with them and that you don't got no choice. And unfortunately, the life that we are presented with is that sometimes we have to interact and deal with people that we would necessarily not want to, but situations dictate that we have to. And sometimes those people are narcissists. So the doctor of the person that I said their name earlier, I'm not going to try to say it again, said you should create a narcissist bingo card. And what does that mean? So the narcissist bingo card is a list of harmful or triggering behaviors exhibited by a narcissist, like what I used to have to deal with some of my exes, gaslighting and belittling and comparisons. The more I read this article, the more I was like, damn, I really am attracted to narcissists and like bona fide narcissists, like not me just diagnosing them by myself, just reading the list of what a narcissist and their traits and being like, yep, that reminds me of so and so, reminds me of so and so, reminds me of so and so. And I always feel like I'm the issue because they gaslight, they belittle, and they compare. So the doctor says, put this on your narcissist bingo card and track the behaviors during conversations and set a target, like 5 occurrences, right? Just to give an example. And then once they hit that marker of 5 occurrences, disengage from the conversation and then reward yourself afterwards for setting a boundary. And I thought that this was really a dope concept, right? Because once again, you're in these type of situations and you got to be in the situations because they're your boss, they're your coworker, they're your professor, right? They're your teacher, they're your student who you're teaching, right? They are your co-parent partner, right? There's a family member and it's the holidays and you ain't got no choice. Like there are situations where you can't avoid. And when you make this narcissist bingo card and you have to interact with them, once they hit, and it could be any number, it's up to what you can tolerate. I personally, because I've got great experience with this, can tolerate a whole lot before I need to eject myself from the conversation. But it's whatever it works for you. If it's one, as soon as they come out with one and you got to eject from the conversation, so be it. I would say especially when it's your boss or a coworker or a family member or a co-parent, you need to develop just a little bit, not tougher skin, but a little bit more teeth because it can't be one, because then you're gonna be ejected from the conversation a lot. But the therapist said, as an example, 5. And once it gets to 5, you remove yourself from the conversation and maybe give yourself a little reward for setting a boundary. But you got to set realistic expectations for narcissists and acknowledge their limits. So it's not about just your limits. You got to acknowledge their limits as well. And using these grounded exercises to mentally prepare for their interaction. So, like, if you know you're co-parenting, you know your ex-partner absolutely a narcissist, and that switch off of switching the children or planning a birthday party because grandparents want to be there and you can't have separate parties. Maybe you can. All right. Or soccer practice or basketball practice or football practice or games or what have you. Because I always tell parents all the time, if they say, me and their mom split, or me and their baby daddy split, 18 years, I don't got to deal with them no more. Wrong. My parents are split. Me and my brother and sister are grown. My youngest brother is about to hit 40 and not too long, right? And a few months, my youngest brother's about to hit 40. If a major event happens for either one of us, both our parents are going to be there. They're not together anymore, but both of them are going to be there. They're stuck with each other through us. They don't really have a choice. So the idea that you would be like, hey, at 18, I don't have to deal with that other person anymore. Wrong. You have to deal with that other person. That's just what it is. So in this article, the therapist is saying, look, you're going to have interaction with them. You know how they are. You also know you can't change who they are because, hell, they can't really change who they are. You got to set realistic expectations for this interaction. And you got to mentally prepare yourself to know that you're going to be dealing with some ish. You are. You know it. That's the reason why you got this narcissistic bingo card. Once they hit that 5, you eject from the conversation, go reset, give yourself a little treat. I don't know what the treat is. What the treat would be for me? Well, I don't know what the treat would be for me, because if it was back in the day when I was in a relationship, but now I'm really good at picking up on that stuff. And I remove myself from that situation relatively quick because I'm good at picking up on the signs. But a little treat for me, what's a little treat? I did a little shimmy when I was thinking about it. What's a little treat? Like a Snickers bar? Snickers or Mr. Goodbar. I love Mr. Goodbar candy bars. I love Mr. Goodbar candy bars. But then I'd be a fat bastard because I'm dealing with a narcissist. So I got to take a bunch of little breaks. So maybe something, a little bit healthier or for you as far as a treat, but understanding that you're not going to change them and you got to mentally prepare yourself for this interaction that you're about to have. And recognize that confrontation is rarely productive and focus on managing personal reactions and actions. Look, you already know they're a narcissist. You already know if you feed into that confrontation, it's not going to go the way that you want to go. Because a narcissist, though they are sensitive, and then they're going to play dirty, they're going to say dirty, and you think that you can go low, it's going to hurt them, not as low as they go. So just realizing that confrontation is not going to be productive for this situation. And the most important thing out of this situation is you get in, get what you need to get taken care of, and get out with the most of your mental and emotional capacity still intact. Okay. This strategy helps maintain the presence and prevents emotional overwhelm or disorientation. So, you know that you're dealing with these people that can get a rise out of you. Don't let them get a rise out of you. Do this narcissistic bingo cards. If they hit these couple things, you remove yourself from the situation. And you know they're going to hit those couple of things because they never change. They are always the same person. They're always going to react the same person. They're always going to react the same way. They're not going to change. How you handle them needs to change. And so how you handle them is do this little narcissistic bingo card. Wait till they hit their limit. Back out of that situation, realizing that you can't confront them. It's going to escalate the situation. That's only going to make it worse. Just remove yourself from the situation. Go gather yourself. Give yourself a little treat. Come back, restart, or continue where the last conversation ended. to get to the point where you handle what you needed to handle with this person. And then step away, like I said, when you reach that bingo threshold, to compose yourself and reduce distress. Because dealing with a narcissist is overwhelming mentally and emotionally. You need to step away to recenter yourself. And then treat yourself kindly throughout the process. Remember that recovery from interactions and or relationships with a narcissist takes time. It does. Don't let it mess up your whole day, but it might. But be kind to yourself by preparing yourself to deal with this person who you know is the absolute worst. But you got to deal with it because of whatever situation that's presented itself in front of you. Just be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't let that gaslighting and that manipulation and the personal attacks and the comparison bring you down. Keep your head up. And then also make sure to seek professional mental health support if needed. Like if you listen and watch this show regularly, you know how big of a proponent I am for mental health. For going to talk to somebody. I talk to people. It's off and on. It's not as consistent as it should be because my egotistical ass be feeling like I'm cured, and that's not how that works. Okay, it's delusional. It's not how that works. Or I get wrapped up in work or things of that nature, and I'm like, okay, I'll get started again, and I forget. But when I'm on it, it is the greatest thing that I could possibly have because it gives me an opportunity for somebody who really isn't that open. Now, you guys may think that I'm open because I talk about a lot and I'll talk about my life. Me and my sister will talk about our lives and it's all surface stuff. Very rarely do I get down and deep about what's going on emotional. Case in point, I told y'all in the previous segment, there was a show that I recorded, I don't know, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, where I went into this long speech about how my dog's death affected me. And as I was editing the show, I said, nah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out. It was like a good 3 to 4 minutes of just me talking about how I felt. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna cut that out. They don't need to be knowing all that. So I'm not as open emotionally in public and even with people close to me as I should be. It's easier for me to talk to a stranger. It helps me regulate my emotions and gives me mental clarity. And so if you're dealing with a narcissist, a true narcissist, not somebody that you labeled a narcissist, a true narcissist, you need to talk to somebody, a professional, not your home girl, not your home boy, not the pastor at the church, unless they have a degree, a doctorate, right? Somebody who actually went to school for this because they know the steps that are necessary to help you through these tough times. But going back to the narcissistic bingo card, what it does is it empowers you to set clear boundaries without escalating conflict. That's the most important thing. It's going to be conflict when you're dealing with a narcissist. You don't want to escalate it, but you also want to set your boundaries. And it offers simple, actionable framework for self-care during unaffordable, difficult conversations. I got a lot of friends, who are on one side of the aisle politically. And they got family members, close family members, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, who are on the other side politically. And things are extremely contentious politically. And they don't like going home for the holidays. It's uncomfortable because they know certain conversations are going to be brought up. Even when they say, hey, look it, I'm not trying to have this conversation with you. The boundaries have been set, but the people are not honoring the boundaries, but this is your family. It's the holidays. Everybody's going to be there. Me and my family is a little different. Well, me, my sister, and my brother. Nope, my mom and dad as well. Like the 5 of us get this honestly. We are not going to be inconvenienced. We don't give a damn if it is a family member. We don't give a damn if it's one of the 5 of us. If we have an issue, we're going to talk to you about it. If you can't respect our boundaries, then you don't get to enter our boundaries. That's just us. But I know a lot of people out there can't do that emotional cutoff that we're so good at, or at least I'm really, really good at. Not a lot of people could do that, and not a lot of people have the situations where they can do that. Um, Everybody could do that if they wanted to, but you love the people, you want to see them, and I get it. I'm not faulting you for that. But this this idea of dealing with not only narcissists, I think this is good to just dealing with difficult situations or difficult people. This bingo card, and to eject yourself from a situation, mentally prepare yourself for a situation, and then eject it yourself from the situation. The moment it starts going left, and still keeping to maintain that healthy mental and emotional balance and well-being. It does help you. When I read this, I was like, this is really good. This does help you maintain your mental and emotional balance and stability when dealing with people. And I would say, yes, this is great for narcissists. This is great for anybody that you have difficulty with. I was supposed to have a meeting a couple of days ago. I canceled that meeting. I knew certain things that were happening in the world. The person that was going to, one of the people that was going to be at the meeting was going to want to talk about the things that was going out there in the world very aggressively. And I was not interested in having that dialogue with that particular person. Not at all. So I canceled the meeting. I said, no, I'm going to go ahead and cancel the meeting. And we're going to reconvene next week. But here's some things that needs to be taken care of, and we'll meet next week. Because I didn't have the mental and emotional capacity to deal with what I knew was coming. I read this article after I canceled that meeting. But even if I had read it before, I would have been like, this person, I know this person. Even if I set the boundary, hey, we're not talking about this, they're going to find some way to weave it in. Just some people are just like that. Some people are just like that. They have a fire up their ass and they need to talk about something. They need to tell you their opinion. And I can't fault them, because here I am with a podcast, right? But just because you got a fire up your ass and you want to say something does not mean I need to listen to it. It doesn't. And when I canceled that meeting, there was a huge weight that came off my shoulders. And I was like, yeah, that was the right decision. That was the absolute right decision. Because I know me. This is before I read this article. I'm going to go in and I'm going to be confrontational, because that's just kind of who I am. I'm a confrontational type of person. And that was just going to escalate what was going to be a meeting that had nothing to do with that. The point I'm trying to make is, yes, the premise of the article was dealing with narcissists, but this bingo card works with dealing with any difficult situation. And I really think that people should really start doing this. You're about to go into a difficult situation. Set your bingo card. And when you know it hits those certain occurrences, go ahead and remove yourself, regather, recenter, and then go back in and move forward. It'll be healthier. You'll be happier, hopefully. And then also get some help. Get some help. But speaking of getting help, people out there need to get help if you're in an unhappy marriage. There are multiple ways that you can handle not being in a happy marriage. But what this gentleman did, that I'm about to talk about in the next segment, was not the way you handle being in an unhappy marriage. And I'm going to get into exactly what he did next. Now, this could be another segment of they did what now? This could legitimately be another segment, because when this story came across my timeline, I said, what? Look, as a person that was in an unhappy marriage, I wasn't even really married that long, but as a person that was in an unhappy marriage, there are ways in which you can get out of the marriage that are, pretty customary or pretty normal, right? You don't have to do no off the wall crazy stuff. Not unless, you're being physically abused or something like that. You might have to come up with a crazy scheme to get out of a situation. But what this man did to get out of his marriage was nuts. So, who am I talking about? The man I'm talking about is Ryan Borgward. Borgward. He's 45. He's my age. And he's a cabinet maker from Watertown, Wisconsin. And he's married to Emily. And he faked his own death and lied to his wife to get out of the marriage. Now, we've heard of this before, people faking their death to get out of a marriage, but this story was just a little bit different. So what did Ryan do? Ryan staged his disappearance about a year ago, August 11th, 2024, during a kayaking trip on the Green Lake in Wisconsin, USA. He sent final text to his wife, promising to return to shore soon and telling her that he loved her. Then he vanished. So what he did was he told his wife, hey, look, baby, I'm going to go out there and check out these northern lights. Just let you know I'm going to be home a little late. But, you ain't got to wait up for me. But I just want to let you know that I love you. I'm just going to check out these northern lights. They're going to look beautiful at night. All right, baby, I love you too. Be careful. That was a text message exchange. I'm paraphrasing. But that's basically what they said. I'm not paraphrasing that much. I put the little hip hop in it. I put a little bass and a little Luther Vandross, little Barry White in it. But that's basically what they were saying to each other. Then he vanished. She wakes up the next morning. He's not home. She's texting, where you at? He ain't there. So after a few hours, she called the police. Like, he was out there at the lake going to see the northern lights. He ain't come home. He ain't answering his texts. We need to find him. So let me tell y'all what he did. He deliberately capsized his kayak offshore and left an overturned kayak and his life jacket behind to make it seem like he had drowned and make it seem like it was credible. Then he had an e-bike nearby. He paddled a child-sized inflatable boat back to land and then rode that e-bike 70 miles through the night to Madison, Wisconsin. From Madison, he boarded a bus to Detroit, crossed into the Canadian border into Canada, and ultimately flew to Georgia, not Georgia, the country Georgia, to meet a woman that he had been conversing with online, that he fell in love with. Her name was Katiana. Now, they said she was from Uzbekistan. They said she was from Ukraine. Whichever one, he fell in love with Kat, both literally and figuratively. He fell in love with Kat. Look at what this man did. He faked his own death pretending that he had drowned. He rode an e-bike 70 miles. Look, I used to ride bikes all the time, right? Riding 30 miles is tough. You got to be in shape to do that. Now, he got an e-bike, but the e-bike's charge goes for only so long. You got to pedal, okay? You got to pedal. This dude traveled 70 miles, took a bus to Detroit, crossed over to Canada. I forgot the next thing. Took a flight to Georgia. From Canada, took a flight to Georgia, right? He had been prepared for months. He didn't change his email. He inquired about moving money to foreign banks. He bought himself a new passport. He cleaned up his browser history. He even took out a $375,000 life insurance policy. All to get away from this marriage. Now, once again, I can say there are easier ways to get out of the marriage. Before I go into how he got caught, he gave an explanation after he got caught. I'll tell you how he got caught in a minute, but he gave an explanation afterwards. And what he said is that he just felt distant at home. that he felt distant from his wife and his kids. He was like, yo, I like to do all these things, all these activities. My kids don't want to do nothing with me. Case in point, when none of his kids with him to go out there to see the Northern Lights kayaking. Now, I'm not a big fan of kayaking. I'm not a big fan of getting in the lakes because lakes are dirty and disgusting. And I'm not a big fan of kayaking because them bad boys can flip over and you can fall in the lake. I know some people go swimming in lakes. That ain't gonna be me. That's some dirty water. I'm not going to swim in no lake. Okay, that's just me. But if you had a boat, even if it was a paddle boat, if he had a boat to go out there and see the Northern Lights, I'd do that in a minute. That seemed dope. I'll go out there with you, daddy. You know, if that was one of his kids, I'll go out there with you, daddy. Can we get a 6-pack on the way or bring some tequila? That sounds like a dope time to see the Northern Lights. Oh, that sounds like a dope time. But he's saying, like, look, my kids don't like doing none of the stuff that I like to do. I'm out here by myself, raw dogging life. My wife don't even want to do the things that I do. I feel lost at home. I get online and Kat out here in Georgia talking about she want to be with me, talking about that I'm funny, talking about that, you know, I have interesting things to say, giving me some attention. That's basically the reason why he said that he went all the way to Georgia. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, not Georgia, USA, Georgia, the country. So how did he get caught? Because he went through all this stuff. I mean, my man cleared his browser history. Wasn't that good enough? He got himself a new passport. He got that e-bike, rode his 70 miles to get away. Okay. Went into Canada, took a flight from Canada to Georgia. He actually landed in Paris first and then found his way into Georgia. Right? He went through all that. How could the plan go wrong? Well, police and volunteers searched for his body for weeks using boats, sonar, and divers, but found nothing. Why? Because he wasn't there. By October 2024, authorities had noticed Canadian law enforcement checked Ryan's passports days after his disappearance, raising alarms. So they out there looking for a body, don't find nobody. Don't find nobody. So they just doing little hits all over the place. Maybe, you know, somebody stole his ID or credit card or something like that. Maybe it wasn't, you know, an accidental. Maybe something happened. Maybe this isn't, you know, a simple death. Maybe it's a homicide. We got to do more investigating. You know, good policing. Good policing. And when they did this, they found out, yo, his passport got checked in Canada after he disappeared. We need to look into this. So investigators discovered his online communications with Kat and obtained forensic evidence from his laptop that he was alive overseas. See, this is the thing that people don't get. Just because you clean some cookies off your laptop, don't mean that bad boy is clear. You know what? You can legitimately wipe computers, but you need to get it professionally done. He didn't get his computer professionally wiped. So they found all his communication with Kat and found out all his search history of him, you know, looking for ways and banks to transfer money and things like that and looking up areas. And he out there planning picnics in Georgia and stuff like that. I'm exaggerating. He probably didn't do that, but maybe he did, right? And they were able to obtain that forensic evidence from off his laptop. The Green Lake County Sheriff's Office established contact with Ryan via a Russian-speaking woman who was probably Kat, who they thought was probably Kat, and even sent police a video confirming he was safe. With persistent detective work, including tracking digital trails and appealing to his sense of responsibility, he returned willingly to Wisconsin in December 2024. Ryan pleaded no contest to obstruction an officer and was sentenced to 89 days in jail, equal to the number of days he was missing, in order to pay $30,000 in restitution because they didn't spend $50,000 searching for him because they thought he had drowned. And this was all because he wanted to leave his wife and live in Georgia with Kat. Now he could still go back. And I told you that after he came forward, he returned willingly and pled guilty and no contest. You know, they was like, yo, man, like, why you do all this? Like, why did you do all this? And he's like, yo, look, feel like I wasn't getting love. Felt like I wasn't getting love. And I found me a woman that, wanted to, love on me. He basically became a passport bro. He's just a cabinet maker from Watertown, Wisconsin, and like going and looking at the northern lights at the lake. They met a woman from Georgia who is either Uzbekistan or Ukrainian, and fell in love and went all the way out there. And they was together. This is one of them crazy times where it wasn't a catfish, because that catfish episode would be absolutely crazy. I wonder if he did all that and he went out there and it was a dude named Gerald. He was British and just had moved to Georgia and was like, I thought you fell in love with my personality, not my body. That would be a crazy catfish. That should be a skit. Either Dave Chappelle or Key and Peele could do that, but that would be funny as hell. But my man felt lonely. Now, that don't give you no reason to go through all of this, because even if your kids don't want to do no activities with you, that don't mean that they don't love you. So you're going to fake your own death. You thought you was better off. You thought they was better off with you faking your death and moving to Georgia with your boo. All right, well, you can still do that. Oh, by the way, Emily, his wife, divorcing his ass. It didn't take her long. It didn't take her long. She filed for divorce 4 months after him returning, which I guess is what he wanted, right? So he gonna get what he want. After he pay that $30,000 restitution and spend that 89 days in jail, he can go right back to Georgia and go be with Kat, if that's what he want to do. But people out there, if you're in a marriage or in a relationship, you don't want to be with that person anymore, you could just have a conversation. It's really not that difficult. It's a conversation. Better than avoiding it. Better get that truth out there. Hey, look, I just had to do it a couple of months ago. Hey, look, I don't think that this is working out. I think you're a great person, but I don't think this is going to work out. I feel strongly that this isn't going to work out long term. Not in a romantic capacity. Maybe we could still be friends, but in a romantic capacity, this just will not work out. And I feel like it's best to go ahead and address that now than try to carry on just because we enjoy each other's company. Because enjoying each other's company isn't enough. Now, granted, it has to be a different type of conversation when you're in a marriage, but there could still be a conversation. I've had that conversations too. It's just like, hey, this is not working out. It is better for us to be happy separately than miserable together. And it's not about putting in the work. Sometimes things have just run its course. But that doesn't mean that you go through an elaborate scheme to go meet your online boo in Georgia. This was crazy. And Ryan, you crazy for it. Maybe it was a midlife crisis. He is 45. I don't know. But there's a lot of easier ways to leave your wife and kids than this. We should go back to the olden times. All you had to do was go over to the next town and have a family. That's a joke. That's a joke. Don't come for me. That was a joke. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, whoo! I tell you, the world is crazy right now. But every now and then to get through the madness, we need a little bit of laughter. And Ryan definitely gave us that with his riding an e-bike. At least he was smart enough to get an e-bike and then try to ride 70 miles. He would have threw up on that bus to Detroit. This is crazy. There's so many other ways that you can leave your wife and kids. You don't have to go this crazy route. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for watching. And until next time, as always, I'll holla. Woo! That was a hell of a show. Thank you for rocking with us here on Unsolicited Perspectives with Bruce Anthony. Now, before you go, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like, comment, and share our podcast wherever you're listening or watching it to it. Pass it along to your friends. If you enjoy it, that means the people that you rock with will enjoy it also. So share the wealth, share the knowledge, share the noise. And for all those people that say, well, I don't have a YouTube. If you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can actually watch our video podcast and YouTube exclusive content. But the real party is on our Patreon page, After Hours Uncensored and Talking Straight-ish. After Hours Uncensored is another show with my sister. And once again, the key word there is uncensored. Those are exclusively on our Patreon page. Jump onto our website at unsolicitedperspectives.com for all things us. That's where you can get all of our audio, video, our blogs, and even buy our merch. And if you really feel generous and want to help us out, you can donate on our donations page. Donations go strictly to improving our software and hardware so we can keep giving you guys good content that you can clearly listen to and that you can clearly see. So any donation would be appreciative. Most importantly, I want to say thank you for listening and watching and supporting us. And I'll catch you next time. Audi 5000. Peace.